I thought about this question. I thought the biggest thing I would think about is maybe just looking, before you even talk to a young person about their trauma, maybe look at how trauma is in your own life. Knowing a little bit about how you sit with it, if it's had an effect on your life, and how you like to acknowledge it without having an impact on the people you work with, and maybe using it as a strength to sort of give you empathy and understanding instead.
I know a lot of workers can feel a bit afraid to ask about trauma, and I think that really comes from a fear of worrying that they're going to do more harm by asking or opening things up, or perhaps not having time then to respond or work it through with the young person. What I'd say is that, you know, our interventions around trauma don't necessarily have to be complicated or lengthy. Just responding to disclosures of trauma with empathy, validating the young person's experience, it can be really helpful and actually an intervention in itself.
I would highlight to new workers the importance of trauma-informed care principles. So they are safety, choice, collaboration, trustworthiness, and empowerment. Often young people have felt chronically unsafe throughout their whole lives. So when we see them, the number one thing to do is make them feel comfortable.
I think that one of the things that can be really helpful is just providing young people with some psychoeducation about, number one, that trauma is a really common experience, but also, you know, what are some of the ways that trauma can impact, and what are some of the signs and symptoms that they might be experiencing. And I think when we do that, we really help to normalise the experience for young people, but also give them some sense of understanding about what might be going on for them, because in my experience, a lot of young people who've experienced trauma think that there is something wrong with them or that they're bad in some way. So I think just by giving them an alternate explanation for what's going on, that is, they've experienced trauma, it's common, these are some of the signs and symptoms, and this is what we can do about it, can be really helpful and validating for them.
So it's taking all of our trauma-informed practice and applying it through a cultural lens that has a deep understanding for the histories and cultures of for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and what intergenerational trauma means to a young person, their families and communities. So the worker needs to know where that young person comes from, their community, and really importantly understand the kinship system that young person comes from and belongs to.
So some tips that I would recommend for workers coming into the field of youth AOD practice would be know your practice framework, which would include trauma-informed care principles, knowing that your relationship with the young person is absolutely key. Really develop your advocacy skills as well. And last but not least, make sure that you have a good supportive network around you, a network of peers, colleagues, and other relationships in the sector to support you along your journey of this work.
So something that can be tricky about working with young people who've experienced trauma is they're often avoidant of coming into session. Often these clients have found other ways to manage emotions that might be with substances. And so actually coming in and sitting down and talking about what's happened in their lives is really something that they don't want to do. What I find that works with young people that avoid sessions is actually bringing that up in session and addressing it and asking them, well, what can we do if I don't hear back from you? Can I contact mum, or can I contact your partner? This way it gives me consent, and I'm able to contact their important people around them and reduce that avoidance.
Another challenging thing is where a young person is still in a situation where they're still being actively traumatised, and we know for a lot of young people they don't have a lot of control over the circumstances that they're living in. They might be living in a care setting, or they might be living in a family where there's violence happening at home, and so sometimes it can be really hard to move forward both with the trauma symptoms but also the alcohol and other drug use when a young person is still in a state where they're being actively traumatised. And I think that can be something that is a bit unique to young people and their circumstances, because young people have less ability to control and make choices over where they're living and their individual circumstances.
Sometimes the challenging part about engaging with young people in this space is that they might be quite often out of their window of tolerance, and what that might look like is high rates of dissociation or high rates of distress or hypervigilance, and that's sometimes quite tricky to work with in terms of engaging with a young person around their goals, psychoeducation, etc. However, once you engage with a young person in an authentic, trusting relationship, you can get to know what their triggers are and what some of their strategies are as well, in terms of bringing them back down into their window of tolerance.
I think based of past histories that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander young people might feel anxious and nervous, and there might be mistrust with people that they see in positions of power and authority.
I guess sometimes it might be the first time that young person's ever disclosed trauma, or they might be in a space where they're talking about something in their life and not have the words or the concepts around that this is trauma. I always find you're not there to diagnose or label it, but maybe just more so make sure that young person has a safe space to disclose and build extra supports around supporting them if they do want to work on the trauma or the experience.
It's important for workers to have a good understanding of what social and emotional wellbeing is, but also the framework in which we work with young people. To be trauma informed with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people means working from a social and emotional wellbeing perspective, taking all of those holistic, all of health ways that an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person views their life, our connection to our ancestors and spirituality, our connection to country, our family and kinship systems, our mind and our emotional well-being. Yeah, that's just vital for working with young people.
Often young people carry a real sense of shame about what's happened in their past. They might blame themselves. So it's really important to instill a sense of hope and normalise and provide that psychoeducation that what happened wasn't their fault, and that they can actually learn skills to lead the life that they want to live.
I love the concept of post-traumatic growth, that actually sometimes some of the tough experiences we go through in life actually help us to become stronger and more resilient people moving forward.
One of the benefits about working with young people in this space is that you get to walk alongside them on their recovery journey, and largely that's about discovering what strategies work for them, what their triggers are, and a lot of that is around psychoeducation. And young people, I have found, are really eager to learn. They want to do the best that they can.
I just think it's the most incredible work because it's just so meaningful, and I think the world really needs more workers that are skilled in this area, because a lot of people have experienced traumatic events, and they can really overcome their current issues or problems by learning skills and attending therapy.
Working with young people it's just amazing. We say this a lot in our communities, and our young ones, our jarjums, are going to grow up to be our future leaders and elders in communities, and in that time that we spend supporting young people, it's just so amazing to know that we're helping this person in their journey. Yeah, we've all got a story, and our young ones is just beginning, and they're going to be stronger.
I feel like young people have a magic to them, an energy that adults don't have as much. It's biased, but I feel like there's this, like, endless possibilities can happen, and I feel like that's particularly so much with young people. Like, anything can happen. I just find when you can see such great strength in young people and see such, I guess I see it like as a bright shining light of hope and belief in young people. I think that's what I get out of this work is when I just see that all the time when I work with young people, and being able to sort of find ways to sort of help nourish that and enable that and acknowledge that is just really powerful.